Hey everyone, this is Josh back with Cardboard Chronicles, and today I'm speaking with John, spurfanattech on Instagram. John, how's it going, man?
Hey, what's going on?
John has a killer Spurs 90s collection, so we're going to get into some of that stuff, and we're going to talk about all kinds of fun stuff today. A lot of 90s stuff, a lot of card friendships, actually, we'll get into that, cards, and relation to your family life, a lot of interesting topics. So, John, why don't you start us off? Tell us about yourself and your background in the hobby, what got you started.
And I think we're actually going to have like some type of reveal or something, right? Like a gender reveal, but not really. Like something's in that same vein.
Maybe.
All right, cool. Yeah. So my name's John. I love cardboard. I think most people watching this probably love cardboard too. I like shiny cardboard in particular. It's great. Maybe there's a little autograph on it, some fabric. All these things they get me excited. I don't know why, but it does. Um, so yeah, I'm a big Spurs collector. Been collecting off and on for, gosh, over 20 years now. Makes me feel old. Um, we'll probably get into like the history of what kind of got me in and the different periods, but like most people, it's pretty similar. So yeah, I mean, I'm a guy that works in technology. It affords me, the opportunity to have the income to afford some of these little side projects, and cards is probably the one where I spend the majority of my free time, and a lot of that's the cardboard takes up a few minutes when you find your auction, and then you watch it throughout the week, and then you get excited when you do the bidding at the end, and then the mail day is always great. But it's all the communication with all your buddies and
Yep.
the build up and the drama that makes this fun. I mean, that's really what we're all addicted to, if we're being honest.
Yeah, totally. So why don't you tell us about your history in collecting and sort of like your, timing in the hobby, your ins and outs, all that.
Yeah, yeah. So, most of the guys you've interviewed, I'm good buddies with quite a few of those guys. We all have the same story. It's almost like we're like a recording of each other. So, I was born in the early '80s. I can remember opening my first pack from KB Toy Store, and when I was a little kid, I pulled the only Spur card in the pack was a Rod Strickland back when he played. So he was like my favorite player. I grew up. I had season tickets most of my life. Me and my dad went to like almost every home game, from the Hemisphere Arena to the Alamo Dome, and then that was pretty much it. Then I went to college. But yeah, so I grew up just collected all the '90s junk. Still love that stuff. When I see those cards, it always brings back memories. And then in the late '90s, started going to kind of card shows with one of my best friends, and was picking up all sorts of just random crap. Like whatever I thought looked cool that I could afford, I'd buy it. And then there's a store in San Antonio called Sports Cards Plus. This guy named Charlie's been running that thing for 25 years. It actually won some award from Panini as best card store in the I think in the country. He had some weird thing that he won,
Wow.
but the prize was they redid his store. Yeah, and so he's got like new floors, like a bunch of new
Nice.
display cases, and it's a heck of a card store. Charlie's a great guy. There's probably a lot of people watching this that have made their way down there. I've met plenty of people that have interacted with Charlie over the years, and everybody's got good things to say. He's a great dude. But yeah, so Charlie put up with me. I used to stare through the glass, and a lot of the cards, maybe a few that I'll show off today, were cards that I actually remember looking at in his cases as a kid. Charlie actually had a PMG green. There's a long story behind that, but he sold it for like a couple grand way back in the late '90s. But yeah, that's kind of what did it, man. Is I saw all these cards in the case. I couldn't afford them. I got to college. I'd buy cards, with book money, and nothing too crazy, but bought some things through the years. I think I've got one out here that I'll show you that I bought. I think late college, and then in and out a little bit early career, and then a couple of years ago, I actually picked up this card right here, this Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan co-signer, and that's the one that kind of got me back into the game. The one that got me in the college days was this Tim Duncan,
Oh
David
man.
Robinson dual auto. It's the only one they signed together. So these are the ones that would kind of bring me back in. But this one here, this one got me. And what really did it is when I'm spending $3,000, $4,000 on a card, it was somewhere in between those numbers. That's a lot of money. And so during that period, guys you've interviewed, Double X, Mike Moeller, Alabama Slamma, 610, whatever his name is of the day, but Justin, obviously Grant, these guys have been, huge in helping me with my knowledge. in the game. Coming back in when you're spending this much money, you really want to make sure you spend time understanding all the nuances that, hey, if I'm going to put 3-4 grand into a card, that's not a stupid idea, and you're not an idiot. Which, by the way, I've made plenty of mistakes, but that's part of the fun too. So yeah, that's kind of the card that set off this 2-year wave where I've gotten pretty obsessive and spent, relatively speaking to myself, a lot of money, and accumulated a great collection that I cherish and I love, and I've met a lot of great people through all that.
Awesome, man. You definitely have one of my favorite collections on, especially on Instagram. I love looking through at your Instagram. So why don't you describe what you collect now?
Yeah, I'm pretty narrow, so I prefer 1997 to 2000, 1999, 2000 stuff. The usual stuff, but it's mainly anything that's rare, that's Tim Duncan or David Robinson. I also love anything that's Sean Elliott, Avery, Vinny, any of the Spurs. That stuff's harder to find just because it's not worth as much. So I don't
Yeah,
think people actually like pull it out of their boxes
right.
and put it up. So this is a plug. Anybody out there that's got Spurs stuff, I want all of it. I love it. I'll cherish it. Let me know if you got it.
It's a good
Spur
home.
fanatic. I'm all over the place.
It's a good home.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's pretty much it, man. I collect a lot of like patch autos at Duncan from the 2000s. That's kind of like what was my first initial kick, was these autographs. I would find these hand numbered Tim Duncan patch autos that were like either to 21 or to 25.
Hmm.
One of the guys we'll maybe mention here in a little bit, named Kiki. Kiki had this card. This one here was on his Instagram. It's a jersey numbered patch auto, All-Star Remnants. He had a couple of them. We made a deal, not at last year, but the year before's national. But I was reading through like Kiki's Instagram, and he's got all these crazy stories about, like, he likes the Jordan rookie that's like a PSA 3, because that's actually a Pop 1. It's the rarest Jordan auto or rookie. And but he's like, I like it because it's beat up. When I was a kid, I kept this in my pocket. I took it to school. I loved it. And so reading those stories from guys like Kiki are like what really kind of related to me, and the nostalgia of like reconnecting with a lot of this stuff that when we were kids we really enjoyed, and now we get to those that are fortunate in their early 30s that can afford this stuff and accumulate our collections.
Yeah, I'm noticing a pattern just in the people that I interview. Like the thing that they actually cherish the most is just sort of the stories and the relationships and everything. It's not the cardboard's what brings us together, but the actual bringing of us together is what we like the most. Um,
Yep. So
so you have a bunch of other non-Spur stuff looking at your Instagram.
yeah.
What's the story on those? Are those trade bait, or is that just something that catches your eye? You find a good deal? What's the story on a lot of that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, another piece of this whole game for me is, I do enterprise sales. So I work on these really large opportunities with Fortune 500 to Global 2000 type companies. Those things take like 6 months to 2 years to do. I love them. I love the chase. And so cards kind of fill the void in the interim, right? As you're
Right.
kind of going through these long cycles. Kind of, I don't know, it's quenching in a way. And so I love the 90s stuff. Like, I think we all do. And so when you can find a good deal and you can negotiate, and I mean, that's a big piece of this. And so if you can do that and find some opportunities, I think Grant Slayton's probably the king of this, where he is just an absolute grinder with, he finds, I mean, Grant is personally responsible for a significant portion of my collection and a significant portion of my addiction. To this whole thing. And yeah, so I mean, I've found quite a few of those. The Kobe's you're referencing actually now belong to Grant. There was a gentleman I think he was in Australia, that decided to sell one of those. He was having a kid. And there's another one, this guy out of Houston, that was an older gentleman. He was moving, and he was kind of cleaning his house up, getting it ready to show, and he found the box. And it turned out this guy had been like one of the ultimate PNG collectors of all time. This guy had a giant box. It wasn't a small box. And this guy would walk around with a lanyard with a tag with a color copied picture of a PMG 1997-98. The red one. It's
Right.
very obvious. Maybe we'll see one later. But yeah, so that way people knew him around all these card shows as the PMG guy.
Right.
And so that Kobe that I bought from him, his wife actually kind of talked shit to him and was like, "Hey man, like you're spending way too much money on this, blah blah blah." Like, I mean, he told me how got tons of grief for it. So I think he paid like $300 for this card, and so I obviously paid a lot more than that. And I made sure to tell him, and I said, "I'd love to tell your wife if she'd like to talk to me that of all the financial decisions you've made in your career, that was the best one you ever made."
Right.
So you should remind your wife of that. That all that grief you took was in the future when you're making decisions like going to the Astros games, because he
Right.
used all the money that I gave him to go see the World Series, and got to have some great experiences as a byproduct of selling off the collection that he loved building 15, 20 years earlier.
Well, he picked the most popular set probably. I mean, that's the one that we're all chasing, right?
Yep. I got gosh, what else did I get from that guy? I think I got a David Robinson red. I know Grant ended up getting a bunch of stuff from him too. I got a 98, 99 Tim Duncan PMG. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that I picked up off of him. Paid him all fair prices on the stuff, and I think he used every single dollar to buy like high-end tickets to the World Series. It
Wow.
was like the same time as the Houston Astros were doing their thing last year.
Well, it's a good thing they won then. He got his money's worth.
Yeah, I think he had a great time, and he actually moved out of Houston now. So I think he kind of that was like you got to think about that. If you're a Houston guy for 30 years, you get to experience the World Series.
Right.
Your little fun hobby from 20 years later funds it, and then from there you just sail off into the sunset. So
Yeah.
pretty cool for him.
So before we came on, we were talking about the addiction side of it, and you've already said the word addiction like 5 times. So
Mhm.
what does the addiction mean to you for the hobby, and is it necessarily a bad word in this case?
I mean, anything. If you get too obsessive, it can be negative. I mean, a lot of what we do, it's the fear of missing out. Like, these auctions are going. There's people in Australia. Our homeboy Jay over there, the David Robinson guy, I feel like he's like created some like API that's able to like automatically buy every single David Robinson card at twice the value, um, instantaneously. But addiction in and of itself, man. I mean, I feel like it's healthy. I feel like I at least justify it that we're buying stuff that there's natural supply demand for, and that's not
Right.
going anywhere anytime soon. And so it's just a fun way to spend time, and it's as safe as anywhere to put money, if safe's a word in that game. But I enjoy it, man. I probably am addicted. I think about this more than anything besides my family and my work. So
Yep, I'm right there with you, man.
yeah.
I think about it in weird places too. Do you notice that? You're just at random places, around your day, and you're like, why am I thinking about cards right now? Whatever.
Yeah, 100%. Especially those big ones that you've been
Right.
waiting for, like rubies and PMG reds and stuff like that.
Or you're waiting for a guy to text back, like you made an offer and you're waiting for the text back, and someone
Yeah,
else texts you and you're like, whatever, I don't want to hear about this.
I know. That's the worst is when you're like, your wife comes up and she's asking you a bunch of like questions that actually matter, and you're completely in like just stuck on whatever it is that you're doing hobby wise. And
Right.
at this point, she knows what I'm doing. She knows it's not work. She knows that I get more serious about this than I do about my actual job. So yeah,
She's like, did you hear what I said, or are you daydreaming about cards? It's like,
yeah,
that's a fair question. Um,
daydreaming for sure.
so how much of you don't have to get into like super detailed here, but how much of your portfolio would you say you actually have in cards?
Like financially,
Yeah.
um, I mean, it's less than 10%, but it's not. It might be around there now. I mean, the stuff's appreciated, but I don't know. I mean, I haven't actually done a good job of going back and like building a spreadsheet and saying what is this actually worth today. I mean, I took a kind of a pretty large insurance policy out on it, but that may not even be enough now because that was over a year ago. I don't know. It's not that big of a percentage. I mean, I think my goal always was like, hey, I want to build up a pretty significant collection. I think if I've got 10% of my stuff in like hobby-based activities, that's probably not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
I view this because of the supply demand on this range that I focus on as a safer bet than a lot of other niches financially over a 30 or 40 year period. So, I don't have a problem putting decent chunks of my money into it.
Something I was thinking about yesterday, if like I were to come across a giant collection and buy out like at some 90s penny collection or something, and I just like finished my PC, would I actually stop? What do you
No,
think about that?
no, you wouldn't, man. I mean, look at a guy like Grant. Grant's the perfect example of where he's found like a million different ways to quench his thirst. Um, Moeller's gone like in a different direction where you know, he's got I think almost every single Grant Hill from the '90s. He's got about three or four missing links, but we have a sad story on one of those. But he's just gone deep. I mean, 5,500 cards, I think, is what he described the other day. That's absolutely insane. And you know what's crazy is that dude he's like the hobby encyclopedia. Um, I talk to him like I'm sure you do too, like almost every single day. And like anytime I have any question about like some fine grain detail, I know Mike has the answer to it.
Right.
And when we're on Instagram, if people ask me a question on one of my cards, I mean, I'm not trying to like blow it off to Mike. Usually, I don't know the answer, but it's also an opportunity for him to show off. And it's like, why don't we ask the expert?
Yeah.
Let's bring Mueller in here, and he'll know some random card from the '90s, the odds, and he'll have some recall from some show he was at 8 years ago where he pulled some version of it. He has like awesome memory. It's incredible.
So he's able to keep things interesting that way by going after sort of
Yeah.
the oddball. And Grant's, like you said, Grant's was he finished, he got the Kobe stuff he wanted, and then he sort of just like, let's get all other high end players, right? Just keep going.
Yeah, yeah. Grant, I think I don't think there's anyone that grinds harder than Grant.
So
But
what would you do then if you got to a point where you were satisfied with your Spurs collection?
yeah, I mean, I'm kind of to the point where Grant was mentioning when you get to a certain stage on his podcast that there isn't enough to quench the thirst, even if it isn't complete, and so you have to find other things. And so for me, what I've been like kind of thinking about might be the next thing is 0304 Exquisite. Start with the Spurs. There's some Ginobili, Parker, and Robinson. All those things are fun. I think that's a year that's got good lasting value financially. I think everyone agrees with that. I really like that. I've also looked into like some DeJounte Murray stuff, but I got extremely burned. I've got two of his Emerald numbered to 5 National Treasures. I think I've got a 10, a 25, a 49, and a couple of 99s. No, 199. All waiting on redemption. I've been waiting for well over a year now, and there's a guy I know in San Antonio that's basically indicated that he's not going to sign those. So I don't know what to do. Panini's really difficult. Like, they'll respond to my emails, but they don't provide any actual information. And
Right.
I'm in I personally don't find that acceptable. But there's not really anything I can do. So I'm not the type of guy that's going to cause a big stink. I'll continue to ask people and try to find alternative methods. But in terms of where I'm going to focus, man, it's going to be on the older stuff, just because I'm not a big fan of Panini probably, but 0304 Exquisite is probably the next frontier for me, at least at this point. That's what I think it'll be.
Like, what about the LeBron? I mean, obviously that's like this giant hanging monster of a card.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave the LeBron to you, man.
Are you kidding? Yeah, I'll just sell everything I own and
I've never been a LeBron guy. I respect him. He's a good family man. He does a lot of really good things to the community. I really wanted him to come to San Antonio last offseason. I was definitely like, dumb enough to think that we had a shot, even though that obviously wasn't the case as a San Antonio Spur fan. But, I respect everything about the guy. I'm just not a huge fan of his in terms of the hobby. Jordan stuff might be cool. I mean, obviously growing up, Kobe and Timmy always had a rival. I love Dirk. Dirk and the rivalry back in the day. I remember all that stuff. So I could easily see trying to bring some cards in there. At one point, I owned his brilliant 24 karat gold rookie. I mean, there's a lot of different angles. I mean, there's no shortage of cool stuff to go out there and spend your money on. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. We've been referencing it a lot. We were talking about it, and we talk, probably every day on Instagram. What do card friendships mean to you? Like the people you've met, how often you talk to everybody, how much time you're spending, communicating versus the actual like cards themselves. What does all that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, you probably wake up and I mean, you know how this works. Like Justin and I today, I think he's in Houston doing some, some fun stuff with his buddy, and we spent a good hour, going back and forth on like, old auctions that had expired, a long time ago, whether that's like jerseys to cards and all sorts of walks. I mean, I like Patrick Mahomes. I went to Texas Tech, so you might see some Tech gear up here in the background. But we were chit chatting about that. In fact, this card here, Justin hooked me up with. This is what got our friendship going. This is the Century Marks, Timmy Duncan. Like every single Justin card, super bold auto. That's
Right.
like his number one requirement. And I kind of just randomly reached out to him. We worked a deal out for that. Didn't really know each other at all. At the time, I felt like I overpaid, but I didn't care. And turned out I was wrong. But we ended up, it was probably a fair deal at the time. But yeah, I mean, we've just like you and I, man. He's like a close friend of mine now. I mean, we talk all the time, and um, he's one example, man. After yourself, Mike Moeller, we talk all the time. Grant, obviously, is someone that I think a lot of us communicate with all the time, and it really enjoy it. That's really, I think, what keeps me in. I think I'd get pretty bored with it if it wasn't for the human relationship component.
Sure.
Um, over time. In fact, Grant, this is the best card Grant ever helped me get. So he's got a good buddy that is kind of like a silent card guy. And Grant had told me like time and time again, like, dude, stop messing around, get the card. And I was still kind of a naive guy back into the hobby. This is the EC 9099 number to 9.5. And I was a naive guy, man. I passed up on the EC Futures, which is like my dream card when it was on eBay. Right when I came in, I passed up on a PMG green for way less than I would pay. This is only a couple years ago. Things have obviously gone insane, but um, you know, getting that advice and is what actually ended up getting this card. Like Grant kept on and like, dude, you look like you're gonna regret it. And I think I tell you the same stuff. I was
Yeah.
actually talking to Grant about this earlier. I was like, dude, I think at this stage, Josh is like his palate is still like changing, and as he fulfills a lot of these gaps, maybe eventually he might get like a PMG red, and he might get like a 97, 98 rubies, and then he's gonna want some other stuff. And how's he going to fill those voids? And so you're going to venture out into these other niches of the 90s, and then some of these that'll pass you by. I can tell you from personal experience, you're going to regret. But that's also what makes the hunt that much tastier whenever you do ultimately land kind of the next generation of your wants and desires.
Well, I mean, I know which card you're talking about, but Grant's holding on to it. It's fine.
It's true. That is going nowhere for a while, but yeah, we'll see. He'll end up like trading that up for like an MJ green or something, knowing Grant.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the cards, like, I know what you're referencing. Like, when I first got in, it was like, I'm never going to own a PMG green. And now I'm, like, frantically searching to find one, to find one. And then 5 years from now, I'm going to be looking for who knows what, right? It
Yeah,
just sort of, but you kind of have to start a little low, I feel like. Even if,
yeah,
like, that's just kind of the way it works.
very natural, man. Very
Yeah.
natural. I mean, the idea of spending, I think that EC6 sold for Essential Credentials sold for, I think it was $12,000 if I'm not mistaken. It was somewhere in there. Maybe it was 13, but it was right there. And to me, dude, I thought that was crazy.
Right.
I got offered a Timmy Green for like 20 or 22 or in that range. I mean, I scoffed. I remember seeing a red hit eBay. It was an 8.5 that had a serial number. One sold for like 7 without one. It was like $4,500. I remember sitting there, pouring a glass of milk, being like, no way. And you see all these things, and it's a very short period of time. We're talking 12, 18 months max. And now you're like, dude, that's a no-brainer. That scares me a little bit. I mean, I know that there's some pretty simple supply demand stuff going on here. This stuff's hard to find and get. But the fact it's risen so much so fast, it's hard to get a pulse on it. There's probably going to be some type of correction, but when you look at this over 20 or 30 years, I think Grant and you talked about this some, and Grant and I always talk to folks about this. We're kind of the ones that are, we have some financial liquidity combined with this burning desire to like get in, enjoy these things that are nostalgic for us, but there's going to be a continued, like, people are going to continue to flow into this bucket.
Right.
And we're probably going to see the peak of this bucket in 15 to 25 years if the economy like doesn't go completely to shit, which it won't. I mean, everyone always feels like the panic's going to happen. I mean, we'll go through ebb and flows like always, but we're going to enter this period just like these baseball guys have experienced, the old school baseball guys. So the stuff's, they're not making more of it. It's stupid hard to get as is. So I guess my mindset now is like this, especially for my personal collection of stuff that I love. And you always want to make sure you're making sound, good business decisions. I mean, that's just how my DNA works. But, and maybe I, group think myself into some of this, but, if I have to overpay to get some of my dream cards, I have no issue doing it because I know over time the value will match what I paid. And either way, I really don't give a shit. So I want the cards.
I think what's going to be interesting is if the economy does dip and cards start to dip. Like I'm interested to see who the real collectors are and who's going to stick around and who's going to panic and sell because they're worried about the money side of it, right? Like we're going to see that as an opportunity to just get more of the cards we want for cheaper, right? We're just
Yep.
going to stick around.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Neaton talked about that some. I think his spin on things is that there's a lot of people that have kind of overextended themselves, and so if we do hit some type of recession, which is, I mean, we're already past. I think we're already in the second longest bull run of all time. We're about to eclipse the longest. So we're it's overdue with all the quantitative easing that's occurred. I mean, we don't know what this is going to look like. I mean, it could be really bad, but even so, I mean, I can remember 2008. It was bad, but we're all still here. We're all still doing fine. I mean, we live in the greatest time in the history of time, regardless of what the news says. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll just get cheaper cards. We just gotta look at the positive.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
Someone's gonna want to unload their PMG green penny for $2,000 or whatever.
You might see it on eBay. You never know. That's why you got to build a bot or some type of API call that can give you all this information on demand.
It just texts me the second anything happens, if there's a chat or anything.
Yeah.
So how do you balance your family life with cards? I know I struggle with this sometimes. I'm interested to see what you have to say.
Yeah, I think we have kids the same age, or roughly. Yeah, I mean, look, I have a job that I travel a ton. I mean, I've had years where I've traveled close to 300 days. That was before I had kids, but now I do travel still 3 days a week on average, and so it's hard, man. It's really hard. There's the balance of like family, hobby, work, and trying to keep yourself together. It's just a balance, dude. You just got to deal with it. I think my wife understands how much I enjoy this stuff, and it's kind of like therapy for work.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, I mean, my number one priority is hanging out with my kiddo. I mean, I'm why we have the opportunity to do this. My wife's in Houston visiting her friends. She had like something going on with one of her friends today, and so I got to like hang out with the kid all day, and then we got to do this tonight when he went to bed. And I had a wonderful day with the little boy, and half the day I sat around bullshitting with you and some of the other guys, but that's the balance we're talking about, right?
Yeah, sure, man. I hear you. It sounds same for me. So, one of the things I wanted to do about this, and you didn't really ask me, but I'm gonna do it anyways. I want to give you a little plug to be able to ask about, or I want you to tell me about your dream cards.
Yeah.
And it's also a plug to the masses to help you find them.
Yeah. I mean,
what are you looking for? What's left?
So I'm your classic guy that had the opportunity and passed it up. At least it wasn't like in my love life. It's only cardboard. So like, I'm a Spurs fan. I've got most of these PMG greens over here. I've got the Robinson, the Elliott, the Vinny, but I don't have the Timmy, and I don't have the Avery Johnson. And so I also don't have the Timmy Red. I had a Timmy Red. Ended up selling that one to Vito a long time ago. Another good guy. But I would love, what I'm missing is the Essential Credential Futures, number to 6.
Just that one. That's not that.
Yeah. It's pretty hard. It's pretty easy to find. I just keep passing on it. And then the Timmy Duncan Green. Those are my two biggest. But quite frankly, I'm just after anything rare Spurs, and obviously pay what it takes to get deals done. So that's my plug. I would love to hopefully surface something out of this.
And I would assume doing a deal with you would be extremely easy. Like, I know it is for me. Like, if anyone wants to sell something to me, it's super quick. Like,
Yeah.
here's the market. I'm gonna pay over that, and let's get it done.
Yep. Pretty much.
Um, okay, so you sort of teased it at the beginning. So why don't you just go ahead and I'll let you just start. Oh, actually,
Yeah.
did this happen? Like, why are we talking tonight? I don't. Is it just sort of random or what's going on?
There's a bit of randomness to it, but not really.
Okay,
All right. So you've been on the hunt for a couple of big pennies for a while now, right?
couple, yeah.
So yeah, and so one in particular was up on eBay. Gosh, 3 weeks ago, I guess.
No,
4 weeks ago.
well, like five,
Five
dude.
week. 5 weeks ago. I don't. It's hard to keep track of time. It's been a while. I forgot about the long shipping part of that.
Yep.
And so for all the folks out there, like you would do with any high-end '90s card, especially with all the stuff with the fakes, you're like, hey man, can you give me some details on this card? So
Yep.
you would message the seller, and you had said, whatever you said. Hey, could you give me some more information to make me feel comfortable bidding on this card?
Right.
All normal stuff. The guy blocks you. You didn't know he blocked you.
Right.
So there was 2 pennies that were up for auction that night.
There were three.
The first one,
The 99
three,
2000.
three.
Yeah.
That's right. So there was one, I don't remember which one it was, but there was one that was ending that was kind of like a tier 2 card for you. I mean, it was probably a tier 1, but not compared to the card you ultimately wanted. And so you went to bid on it, and the son of a bitch blocked you. Thank God.
It was the
Which one was
90. It was the 90 fine.
Yeah, the 90 fine, which is a great card, a very underrated card. Especially Penny. I think Penny's great in that set. So then we started talking, and I said, dude, let me bid on the rubies for you. I'll buy it. I'll get it. I'll make sure it's legit, and then I'll send it to you. Cool. So we did it, ordered it. Next thing you know, the guy like sends it, probably the normal way, but it took a long time. I don't know if this is something going on with like the trade war that's happening with China, but it took like 3 weeks for it to get to the United States. The day of delivery, we're super juiced. It's coming to my house, and then all of a sudden it shows like delivered to agent, and then it's signed for. It's signed for, but it says delivered to agent. It's not in my mailbox, and we're like, what the hell is an agent? So we start Googling it, and it's like, well, an agent is like when you drop a package off. If a postman drops a package off to a university or a business in like a mail room. I live in a neighborhood. It's not a mail room. And so we start kind of freaking out. We also notice the timestamp is like 9 something in the morning when my mailman never comes before 1 to 1:30 in the afternoon. So we start calling the post office. We start making the rounds. We ultimately end up opening an investigation.
Right.
So I think at that point, you and I was like 10% chance. I was like, this thing ain't happening. There's no way you're going to get your card. And then I'm sitting here as the middleman trying to be a good guy, and no good deed goes unpunished. And so I'm like, shit, like, how is this? This is going to be a lot of like hassle. Like, we got to figure this out. So through all that, this homeboy right here,
Yep.
Eric has a contact that he helped us, like, and then that led to like someone that I knew. And long story short, we ended up finding this guy in San Antonio that was a pit bull. And thank God we really didn't need this guy like as much as we thought we might. But this guy was like all over. We get him on the phone. He gives me a cell phone. Him and I start texting. We talk at like 7 at night, which is kind of weird for someone that works for the Postal Service. You would think they'd clock in, clock out. And he's like, I love sports cards. I used to collect. And this is going to be my most fun. He was like, I'm excited about this one.
Right.
He's like, sorry that you're probably going to lose your card here, but I'm excited. I was like, hey, dude, as long as you go all out, I don't care how. I don't care. Like,
So did he know that it wasn't yours?
no, I never mentioned that to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured I just wanted to keep it simple.
Right.
And so, so all of a sudden, like, we had talked to him. We started feeling pretty good. Like, all right, we're going to have our best chance to recover this thing. Next thing you know, I'm kind of sitting around my house thinking, and my parents travel a ton. They've been retired for a long time, and their hobbies travel. So they went overseas for a while, like a few months. And so they live in the same neighborhood as me. Like they live sort of. Well, it's the same city, same zip code, same R10 mail route, and so their mail was held. And so I'm sitting in my living room one day, and I realize, dude, I bet you my postman, because I just moved back like 8 months ago. We had a kid. My family moves back home, you know. So I'm like, this postman probably saw Burleson, my last name, and threw that son of a gun into my parents. Because I've had this happen with other cards. Now, so I called like this pit bull, law enforcement USPS guy, whatever the heck he is. Tell him that, and he's like, hey, I got a trial going on. I can't get out and check the bin in the hometown that I live in until Thursday. This is like on a Monday, I'm pretty sure, maybe even a Sunday.
It was Monday.
Okay, Monday.
Yep.
So, we have to kind of wait. I'm feeling pretty bad because my post guy, like, we kind of thought he may have stolen it, but I was like, no, dude, this guy's not like that.
Yeah.
Plus, the evidence, like, had this guy had stolen it the way that these timestamps work, these little things these use to do sign outs are like GPS located, like it would have been like a really dumb crime.
Right.
And so it was, everything pointed towards like a simple accident or simple mistake. So I guess it was Thursday. I'm in Dallas in some meetings, and I get a text. Hey, we found it. It's in your parents' bin. And so, I think you might want to show some stuff off here on the old on the old podcast.
So you texted me like, now it's time to send it to you, and I was like, dude, overnight that shit, add insurance, whatever we gotta do, get that to me get it to me on.
That was yesterday. That was Friday.
That was yesterday. Yeah. So today, I'm sitting at home waiting all day, of course, and UPS said guaranteed by 1:30 my time. We got here at like 1:20. So we're like, John, let's open this thing live, right? I'll just stare at it all day and not touch it. So we're gonna open this bitch right now.
Love it.
Trying to keep it in the camera, but also enjoy it for myself because this is truly live.
Don't mind the that's my a reused package.
These things are great. This is fun.
Yep.
So I'm gonna do the natural reaction. I need my moment, and then
We'll come back to podcasting.
Right. Oh shit. Dude.
That blue on blue, man.
So hard much. You can just tell right away compared to the fake. It's so much better.
I wonder if people know that story. You probably I haven't listened to the Roger Maris one yet, but
yeah, I told that one on the Roger Maris. So that's what makes this story so much more interesting. Is I already had this. I already had this crazy.
Nice is that?
It's nice, dude. But I told you the skin tone is the big thing.
Yeah.
The big difference, which is kind of weird, but and then the cereal
pixelated.
Yeah.
It's wild.
So I had bought another rubies on eBay 6 months ago, and it turned out to be fake. Sorry, people are just show the damn card, you idiot. Oh yeah. The sleeve is nice, dude. You're right. It's very tight.
Do you have those?
I don't have BGS ones, but so mine. I have this, the equivalent of the PSA case. The sleeves, yeah.
Yeah, those My Perfect sleeves. Another plug. Yep. Those are great.
Those are great. So I had bought a Penny Hardaway and then this card in rubies, and I didn't find out it was fake until 2 months later from Roger Maris from the fake thread he had, and it was just super devastating, and I've been trying to get another one forever, and then this one popped on eBay, and then we went through this whole thing, and it was not again, right? Here we go. So it ended up being.
It was so dramatic, dude. It was rough, but it was, dude. The outcome is as good as it gets.
Yeah, no, dude. This thing is clean, man. The edges are really nice. Corners are an 8. I'm trying to find why. I guess the back corners are a little soft, but it's pretty clean.
Send it to Josh Cade for a little wipe down. He'll get you a 9.5 on that.
Wipe down on the corners. Okay, so the other part of the story, I'll take over on this part.
Yeah.
I had bought another card just randomly, had nothing to do with any of this, and the day that it delivered happened to also be today, and that's why I'm wearing red today, the Penny PMG red. So I already got it all sleeved up, ready to send off to get graded. This thing is clean, man. I feel like this one's going to be an 8. It's super nice.
Love it.
Oh, man. Crazy day. This one came 20 minutes before the rubies. It was USPS showed up with the Ruby, and then the UPS guy showed up, and it was just like, I can't handle this, dude. Like,
At least it's Saturday. You're not trying to get work done.
yeah, oh yeah, can you imagine? I would have just like left work and went home, and I'm sick, guys. Sorry.
Amazing, amazing.
Uh, it's hard doing live openings, but just because you're trying to like,
Yeah, we went back and forth on this. Like, how do we want to handle the reveal? I think it was a good choice to do it live, man. This is it's
yeah.
pretty cool.
Woo.
Which one do you like more?
Oh man, God. Everybody
I mean,
always
the
people
red's
always
always
ask me.
yeah.
Go ahead.
The red's always the one that gets the acclaim. But I mean, I'm like a barracuda. I'm attracted to shiny objects. So
Yeah, the like amoeba pattern, is so unique that I don't know. People always ask me to rank my pennies, and it's so hard. I'm just like, I don't know. I like them all. I mean, the rubies and the PMGs for me, like they kind of all.
I agree.
I don't know. Like if I had the
How do you
PMG green,
differentiate?
I would. The green maybe I could probably tier above, but that's mostly just because of how the meaning of it. But looks wise, they're all so similar for me in terms of value.
Yep. I'm a rubies guy. ECs are probably my favorite, but rubies in terms of what you're holding.
Like the
Just all the
98.99
shininess,
rubies.
dude. I mean, I like all the colors.
Yeah, dude, this is nuts. Like these are probably like my two most prestigious pennies just sitting right here on the same day. It's crazy. So now I gotta go bigger, right? Like, isn't that what you do? Like you get them and it's like, all right, what's next?
I mean, you might have a lull and you'll have to fill it with a bunch of like stuff that you may not think you want, but you'll end up loving too. I mean, that's how it works, man.
Yeah, buy some like cheaper stuff for a little while.
Yeah. You never know.
Do you have any other cards you want to show off? Your turn.
Yeah, I knew you were bringing out the rubies, so I was like, well, let me bring my twin tower rubies.
Yes. There you go.
There's I'll probably end up flipping both of these to PSA since they seem to be pretty proactive with making sure that we're putting real cards in slabs and we're not letting fakes get in slabs.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of PSA for how proactive they've been.
Especially with that set, dude.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. The other ones I want to show are some stuff that I got from another guy that I really enjoyed hanging out with. We had Justin and I, Neaton, and this guy had a booth together at the National. I wasn't able to make last year. I was stuck in DC in meetings, but this guy Herb hooked me up with these. Only one I've ever seen. That's a grand finale Duncan rookie. Never seen another one, and Herb was nice enough to sell me that. And then again, a card I've never seen except for this one, the cutting edge Warp Tech. And then that pairs up so nicely with the sky's the limit.
So the cutting edge one is not numbered?
No, it is. This one's 8. It's probably hard to see, but that's 8 of 25.
Okay.
But it's numbered on the back. The cutting edges are on the back, and obviously these are on the front.
Yeah.
These are just it's just look, dude. These '90s cards. It's something I definitely wanted to talk about. I'm glad it popped up in my mind. Look, back in these days, I've talked to a lot of all you guys about this. The people that made these, Grant talked a lot about these folks that he actually got his bar sign made from. But back in the early days, this was a labor of love. Like, this is right when you had personal computers that had the horsepower that could allow you to do like some really cool computer graphic stuff. They would rent these machines out, pay a pretty hefty amount of money. So like, they weren't necessarily as focused on the economics that you would have of today with like Panini trying to replicate these brands and keep costs really tight on the designs. These guys, man, they were trying to build some really cool shit. They were trying to see what they could build, stretching the limits of the imagination. And so that's why I think that's one of the main reasons why I love the 90s stuff is, number one, it's numbered. So it's a needle in a haystack around, with mixed in with a bunch of crap. And then you've got these just stupid designs that are basically just people being extremely imaginative. And then the designers are given the liberties to do that because everybody at that point was like, wow, this computer thing is so cool. Let's see what we can do with it versus, right. Hey, you can only spend, this amount of money and, whatever else behind it. And everyone's freaked out about losing their job. So, yeah, I mean, these crazy Warp Techs and, the the wild like PMG championships. I got an actual real copy, even though Beckett's graded 4 fakes of this. They're just amazing. Grant's probably got the best collection. This was actually his copy, and this ended up working its way through. And I made a trade with our boy Eric here to make this one land in the collection. But it's been nothing but fun, man. Meeting all these people and talking all day long with all these different folks, and then from time to time landing your dream cards. Today you got 2 of them.
Whew. Yeah, you definitely you touched on something I guess I haven't really thought of, but there's literally a 3-year window where they just like went all out and maximized every possible amazing design they could come up with, and then 2000 hit, and they sort of, I don't want to say ran out of ideas, but they just it just sort of flatlined, and they maybe tried to recreate stuff, and they tried to catch it, but they just couldn't recreate that 3-year window, and then ever since then it's like patches and autos. Yeah. So there's just 3 years.
Exquisite's got some great stuff, and it's a different style, but they absolutely nailed it. But I just think, man, the bosses came in and they're like, hey, priorities and strategies changed, and we had this nice little awesome period. And thank God that they built the cool stuff and they combined that with like saying we're going to build the best stuff and we're only going to make like a couple of copies of it.
Yep.
Because now that is what is like the Sex Panther cologne that makes us all go and chase it.
Just the rarity for sure. That's the biggest part, and the fact that it's like in a sea of mass amounts of common cards, right? Yeah.
The odds are dumb on these things. It's kind of hard to fathom when you think about the new stuff relative to the old stuff.
And like you said, we don't even see them. It's like there's 50 copies, and in 3 or 4 years we've seen 1 or 2 of them. It's nuts. Yeah.
Can you imagine the modern breakers going through old cardboard and having like all these people buying teams, and I guess they'd only pay like $2, but they would have to buy they'd be going through like cases and cases to find one decent card. You know what I mean? Like,
and it's some common Rubies guy, right? It's like a common player.
Yep, exactly, man.
Like all the guys that are buying up 90s wax and busting, like nobody's hit really anything gigantic. Like they'll hit reds and like cool cards, but they're usually not big players. It's just crazy hard to find.
Dude, Grant actually he hit a super rave David Robinson.
Oh wow.
A couple of years ago, about a year and a half ago, and so I actually have it. He sold it to me. And then I also got a guy that I can't remember what his name is on Instagram, but he pulled a David Robinson 24 karat brilliant.
Wow.
And I got both of those actually. Those guys are nice enough to sell them to me, but I'm sure there's others that are big hits. Obviously, I remember those because they're one of my favorite players. But
and you got them.
Yep. Yeah, man.
All right, man. This was great. This was a longer video, but that's okay. We had the live opening. We kind of made it a more interesting video. We added some fun stuff to it, so this was awesome. I'm gonna go enjoy the rubies. So I'll talk to you later.
Adios.
See ya.
Take care. Bye.